Malden. I'm from a company called Coloricious. We're an English company, and I'm over here in Canada today to inspire the Canadians to do some block printing.
Okay, great. And when exactly did you get involved in block printing?
Well, it's actually, I've been involved in it for about 2 years now, and the more I do, the more I love it. However, it is a very ancient Indian technique. It's not something I've invented, but what I have done is I've created blocks which have a more contemporary feel about them, and I really want to encourage people to take up block printing and design their own fabric, design their own papers, really to be in touch with their own creativity.
Okay, so basically you've been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah. And it's
no background training, it's just something inside. Where did this come from?
Well, my whole life I've been doing crafty things. I mean, in England, when I was a child, we had a program called Blue Peter. It still runs, but that was when that program started, and I'm what you call a grown-up Blue Peter kid. It was an arts and craft program, and I spent my entire youth making things. I've spent my entire adulthood making things, and so it's just another thing that I just love to do, and I've been doing this now, as I say, for 2 years, and I'm still discovering new things. I do a lot of workshops in the UK, and what I find so exciting is that when you do it with people, you might have used the same blocks over and over again, but still people come up with their own different ideas. It's so fantastic, it's so exciting.
So as an artist, you were able to travel as an artist. How does that work out?
When you say travel as an artist,
travel meaning you're from UK.
Yeah, and I'm here in Canada.
You're in Canada. How did this happen?
Well,
for something that you've done for only 2 years.
I know. Well, it's just that in the UK, in order to sort of reach a wider audience, you really have to go to all the kind of shows, the creative shows. And there was a lady called Marguerite in a show in Sandown, and it was a quilt show, and this lady was Canadian, and she came up to me and she said, you know, you really ought to bring block printing to the Canadians because they would love it. So I said, okay, I will. So, you know, I've taken a bit of a leap of faith here to come this way, but I have to say the Canadians have been absolutely gorgeous. They've been so welcoming and so friendly, and absolutely everybody loves what we've done. So for Coloricious, it's been a really fantastic exercise in really showing people that we're here to inspire people, and we're really wanting to profile British textile artists.
And what about for children?
Oh, well, I have a whole background of life with children, which was another life. I spent 25 years teaching primary school children, and which I absolutely adored all of it, and I love doing all the crafty things with the children. And I do think that if children are encouraged to be creative, they're much better behaved. I mean, when I was headmistress at my school, we never had a behaviour issue, and I always put it down to the fact that we balanced the academia with the creative studies, and so the children that always grew up at my school able to do a whole range of creative activities. So for me, I think it's important for children to have a balanced approach to their life, and it's very important to keep in touch with their creativity. It's the same for adults as well, you know. You know, if adults are allowed to be creative, if they have an outlet for that creativity, then I think it makes them a happy person. You know, some people, you know, they go for a run to get their endorphins. Well, I just do some block printing or do something crafty, and I think it's the same with adults and children. If they do something that they love, it doesn't have to be block printing, it could be whatever they want, however they interpret creativity itself, be it through cooking or music or art, whatever, then I think that creates the endorphins. That is what I feel makes people happy.
So let's say that there's a child out there that says, oh, they're frustrated because I'm not an artist, I can't draw anything.
Well, that's why I think block printing lends itself so beautifully, because actually you don't have to draw anything, it's already been made. But actually when you teach, what I like to do is I start off by teaching people rules. So I like to teach the theory of pattern. Because if you teach something very simple like here's a row, which anyone can do a row, but then you do variations of that row, and then you do things like mirrors and inversions and half drops and bricks, suddenly they've got control of what they're doing because they understand the rules. And then of course with all rules, once you've learnt them, what do you do with them? break them.
Okay. And what advice would you give to a parent that, you know, because a lot of times in school now, as we spoke about earlier, they're getting rid of arts, they're getting rid of music, writing, like creative writing, I mean, and they're not putting an emphasis on it. So kids go to school, they learn, they have a strict regimen.
Yeah.
How can a parent that wants creativity or knows that their child is extra creative, how can they foster that? How can they encourage that?
Well, I would say, I mean, I have a family myself, and something that I've consciously done, and I think is quite good advice, is to try and almost alternate their days. So you don't just come home and sit in front of the TV as soon as you get from. The children need to watch TV. There's a lot of very good things to be watching on TV, but they just don't come home and sit there like a robot, you know, glued to the TV. To be selective. Now, what we did as a family, which worked for us, is we had play nights and we had TV nights. So if you don't allow TV at all, then I think that children are a bit deprived, because they need to talk about, you know, programs, because that's what their peer group are all talking about. However, it doesn't need to be every single night. So we had Monday, Wednesday, Fridays in our house were play nights, and we would play games together, we would do art activities together, we'd do things together. And that way, I think if you can just think about balancing your children's lives, it does take a bit of an effort, but actually I think that children get on better with their parents if you've had that time together. When they're sat in front of the television all the time, there's no communication, is there? They're just kind of transformed into another world. However, if you have, you know, your 3 nights a week where you're doing things together in some sort of creative way, then it gives you things to talk about, and it's fabulous the way children can communicate their thoughts and their ideas, or just little snippets about what happened to them during their day. When you're sat there painting a box or sticking some bits of paper together or whatever. So I would just say that try and be a sensible parent by having a balance. Isn't a balance a key word to almost everything in life?
Yes. So now, well, you just started block printing for the past 2 years, so you weren't able to do that with your children.
No, I haven't done that, no.
But can we see what you have now in the past? Well, I guess for the past weekend you've been doing this.
Well, I've spent the entire weekend doing demos, which has been wonderful. And I think the great thing is that people just love it. I'll show you that, sorry, if I just hold up some bits and pieces here. We have, excuse me, we have designed this block, and it's made of wood. I've got a couple of blocks here actually which I can show you. So these blocks are made of wood. They are sustainable, so they are environmentally friendly. They're also very much fair trade, in the sense that I literally employ a group of carpenters in India to carve these. So I design them through various means. I email them to my colleague in India, who's called Puneet. Puneet then organises a little group of carpenters to make them, ships them back to me in the UK, and then I do all my workshops. Now, people love the blocks as art pieces in themselves,
yes.
But what you do is you charge up the block with a sponge, and sorry, I beg your pardon, can I say that again? Cut. You charge up the block with a sponge, so you put the paint on there, you dab it around, you dab it all over the block, and then of course you press it on. Like, this isn't the right block obviously, but that's the very basic principle. So the 2 secrets of successful block printing are, 1 is the sponge, and 2 is this foam background, because it gives a really clear impression. And I'm creating layers. I mean, with being artistic, if you create layers, that is generally kind of gives your work a bit of depth. So I've done some purple, and I've some blue, and then I'm going to put over some yellow. So this is work in progress, and I can show you a piece that I've already finished. So this is something which I'm going to I feel that is finished, and I'm happy with that. My plan is that I'm going to get some wadding and a background, and I'm going to do some quilting there and make it a nice sort of centerpiece for something like a cushion or a runner.
And I can see the layers, the layers, you can see it's really making it three-dimensional. Well, it's making it pop out.
Exactly, because I think this is called shadow printing.
Right.
And again, if you teach people these obvious things, I mean, people know about it, but they don't always think about it. They don't really do the joined-up thinking. So if you just show them once, most people get it, but not just get it, but take it off in their own direction. And that's the bit I love. I think it's fantastic. And then, so we're just on a matter of sort of producing things like that. Then the question that a lot of people ask me, well, what do you do with it? Well, this piece here has been block printed, and then I've done a very traditional quilting technique, which is a vermicelli stitch, which has made this piece of fabric almost three-dimensional. You can see that. Now, sometimes you do a piece of fabric and you go, ugh, it's horrible, I don't like that. So my advice is you never throw anything away, you keep going with it. And this piece, what I did was I layered a piece of organza over the top, and then just did some free machining, and that way it's kind of transformed this fabric into something quite dull, into something that's actually got a bit of pizzazz. My intentions here are to sew some beads in here, and I will probably end up making it into something like a fabric journal or something. Okay. Talking about transforming it, the other thing, oops, I should show you that way, is this was a piece of fabric that I didn't like. It was a dragonfly with some foliage. Block printed that, didn't like it. So again, same principle, layer up some a sheer fabric which has got a bit of glitter in it. Did some free machining here with a variegated thread. Still not quite there, but by actually doing some hand stitching on top, we've been able to push until I get to a point where I think I really like that. So if you look carefully, we've gone from this, from that to that in really a very short space of time. So again, it's all about just taking skills that you've got, things that it doesn't have to be complicated, but just keep pushing the boundaries of your thoughts, thinking, how can I make it better? And often people say, when do you know when to stop?
Yes.
And the answer to that is when you like it.
Okay.
And I like this, so I've stopped.
Okay, I like it too. It's very nice. It's very nice. So now, when you're doing block printing, because a lot of times, even someone who is an artist or developing into an artist, they are looking to really create something totally unique. Yeah. So when, for example, you're a quilter or you're a fiber painter, how can you incorporate block printing into quilting?
Well, the most amazing thing is that actually all you're doing by block printing is creating a piece of fabric. So you can do quilting with that. I mean, something that we've done is we've done quite a few different quilts where we've block printed some pieces. I mean, it's just, there's too many techniques to kind of answer that question. But the underlying issue is the fact that you've created a quilt which is particularly special because that fabric doesn't exist anywhere in the world. It's totally unique to you. And that's really the magical ingredient that makes people artistic, I think.
Can a 2-year-old do this?
Well, possibly, maybe not a 2-year-old. A 2-year-old
with a 3-year-old. So we're going to go up by numbers.
Okay. We have done, my colleague did do a playgroup of 4-year-olds.
Okay, 4.
It was verging on semi-chaos, but it was very successful. There was a lot of adult intervention. So okay. I would say probably to actually do it where they were doing it for themselves, by themselves, I would say probably about 6 or 7, something like that.
Where no one's stamping on the foreheads and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Block printing with stamping like that is lovely, but it's actually very messy and it creates a lot of unnecessary clearing up. But why not, you know?
Okay, sounds good. Is there any last advice that you would want to, from inside, to give to artists of any age or someone who is possibly thinking but hesitant?
Do you know, I would say that's possibly the most common element in anything that people do. They seem to lack confidence. They seem, oh, I can't do that, it's too difficult, I'm not creative. Well, I defy that. I say you give me anybody for a day and you will have created something. So I would really like to say to everybody, please just relax, go with the flow, absorb new skills and then let them be, and they will just stay in your mind, and suddenly you'll notice that things are making connections, and that all goes on in your brain, and really it's just about giving yourself food for thought, isn't it?